Hi guys, this is Daniel Hesker doing my second video for headsupsng.com. A little annoyed I did the audio for this already and then went to bed before saving it. My computer decided it'd be a good idea to shut down, so I can do it again, but hopefully with hindsight do an even better job, get a better product out to you guys. So let's get straight into the footage. All this action I played yesterday at $160 games. Granny B's a reg, and then I think that the rest of them are recreational players. So let's get into the action and see what happens. So Granny B I've got a pretty decent history with. Played him for a while on and off, like anywhere between the hundreds and 300s. I know he used to be he's played as high as a 1k, so pretty experienced player. You can see that his VPIP out position's pretty tight though, so definitely going to be raising pretty much close to 100% at the start. On the flop, just c-bet. I know a lot of you probably c-bet 40, but I've been c-betting 30 with a lot of my range on most boards, unless it's really wet board and seems to be working for me, so I'm kind of happy with it. So c-bet 30, get a call. It's a kind of board where, like, yes, you can barrel a ace-high board some percent of the time. He's got a really high turn fold to turn c-bet, which is kind of a good incentive to do it. But on the other hand, it's like a new game or a couple of hands in, and I think there's a decent chance he calls me down with a queen. Also, I know I've seen him before. He defends some ace x's when we're fairly deep. So he's maybe got those in his range as well. I'm not sure if he check call or check raise. But also, you know, we beat some hands like some flush straws and jack tens that he might decide to check down. So hit the 6 on the river, and we got some showdown value, even though it's not great, and we take it down versus king 9. So on the right hand side here, he just min led into us. I can kind of go either way here. I don't really like raising that much because they're not very good many great turn cards versus his call to our raise. For instance, if he has a draw like 6-8 or 9-8 or something, and an 8 comes, then either way, like, we're probably getting it in, and we're like pretty happy to do so. If we raise and he calls though, and then the turn card comes like this, I think you kind of get lost in hand, and you give him a lot of opportunities to bluff when your king 8 has showdown value, and you're kind of drawing to kings which are probably live, 8s which are probably live, and also you know you can find some spots to bluff, like if the ball comes 4 flush and he checks and he has 7x or something. I might be inclined to turn my hand into a bluff, but when he gives me such a cheap price, and you know we've got a hand with showdown value, and it's a complete unknown, I'm more inclined to take the line which will get me to showdown. And then once I've reads that he's min leading here with queen 9, then I'm happy to start raising and doing some stuff. But right off the bat, I'm kind of happy to just try and get to a showdown. So I call here. He min leads again, and now I think he's probably got quite a weak range. The turn's not really a good card for my range, it's definitely better for his. But once he min leads again, I don't think he would do this with a flush draw or a 5, because the board's kind of got scarier. If he has a 5, unless he has something like king 5 with the king of spades, and even then, like, he's almost certainly going to bet more. So his range at the moment, I think, is still some draws like 6-8, 9-8. Maybe some hands which picked up a gut shot and a flush draw on the turn, like something like Jack 9 that just min led because it wanted to see a cheap turn or something. Now he's betting again. I don't know, he's got a pretty weak range, I think, so I'm just going to call again. I'm getting like 7 to 1, so I mean, there's no reason not to. And our king high is definitely still good some of the time. Okay, so we make our pair of kings on the river, and he min bets again. Once he does this, I think the likelihood of him uh, min min betting on all three streets with a trap hand are incredibly small. I'd be kind of amazed if he had a better hand than us here. So that being said, we have to think about if we're going to raise what we can get called by. So we're looking at 10s and 7s, and I think 7s are more likely because he min led the flop, and it kind of makes more sense with his hand because you know it's a hand with kind of marginal showdown value, and you can understand why a player would want to kind of try and buy a cheap showdown. You know, just min bet, min bet, min bet, and maybe get called by ace high or something. We can have some draws that miss, so we can just have complete air that we like a queen 9 hand or something like that, or a 3-4 that we just now just gonna raise the river with. Sorry about that. And yeah, so I think making a small raise here is probably the best idea. I think I sort of toyed around with a few sizes here. I think we kind of have to raise assuming he has a 7 or a 10. And so making a small size raise size to 80 or 90 is probably good here. Just with his sizing, I assume, and the fact I haven't seen him before at the hundreds makes me think that he's probably gonna be fairly cally in this spot and look me up light. And yeah, so yeah, I think I raised to 80 and he shows 7 too. So, the guy on the right, 3 bets to 120 there. Obviously gonna let it go now. King 9's just not strong enough to go all in. There's a spot a bit later on in the footage where he does this again. I have ace 8 and I make a really tight fold, and we'll go into that then, but we'll see that it was actually a pretty bad fold against what I think his range was. Okay, so you got Jack 7 here. Granny B is like playing. Well, he's raising 38%. He's open shoving 21, so that's 59% already. And then he's limping another 6%. So he's actually playing 64, 65% out of position. In position in this stack depth, which is pretty. Well, it's quite a lot of hands. And with him open shoving 21%, I definitely think he's going to have some weak hands in his min raise folding range. So that being said, I call with Jack 7. I think it flops well. I'm going to flop gut shots and. Sorry, I'm going to pause the video for a second and see if I can get rid of it. Sorry about that. I think, yeah, I've been having these weird pop-ups, need to get rid of them, and I'm fairly computer illiterate, so it's not that fun for me, to be honest. Okay, yeah, so the Jack 7 hand here, call, we dominate some of his raising range, and gonna hit any 7, any Jack, pretty much get it in on almost every board. And yeah, not too much to say about that. I think it's a fairly standard call. On this board, I decide to lead. I think it's kind of an interesting play. The reason I lead is because there's so many good turn cards. You can have a 9, a 10, a Jack, 6, all which are going to get a 7, a Jack. So many turn cards that are going to give me equity. If he raises, then I don't expect him to raise his flop super light. I think if he raises, he probably has either a draw, an 8, or a 5, and he might call with some of his draws. And I never really expect him to call with an 8 because just being scared that I have Jack 9 or 9-10 or something, and I've got 2 overcards, and he doesn't want to give me a chance to hit on the turn. So yeah, I lead half pot here, and I really like the size because once he calls, then his range is extremely capped to some overcards, hands like King 10, then some weaker 5x's which he didn't raise. I could be wrong, it's kind of a little bit of guesswork involved, but I think a hand like Jack 5 would probably raise here. And maybe hands like 5-6 would maybe call. That's an assumption I'm kind of making. It seems kind of intuitively right. Just because it would get to the top of his range and the 5's kind of vulnerable. He might shove all 5s, I don't know. But once he calls, I think his range is pretty kind of capped to some 5x's, 3x's, and then overcards. And against that range, there can be a lot of turn cards that I can just get the money in. And he's going to fold a lot. I'm going to have a lot of good equity, and it leaves a pot size bet left anyway, so equity, pot size bet, a bluff only needs to work like 30% of the time, and I can hit a jack or a 7 and be good. So I like the lead. On the turn, we improved second pair. So now I've already said he's going to raise all latexes. When the 7 comes, I think unless he has 2 pair, we're good quite a lot. I mean, you can have a straight like 9-6. But yeah, I mean, we have the best hand the vast majority of the time here. And I think it's... The question here is how much to bet so that we don't give him good odds with all his gut shot and pairs. So if he had like a 3-6 or something, we don't want to give him insanely good odds. And that being said, if we shove as well, I think that looks kind of strong. The 7 kind of hits our range maybe a little bit. Like we could have like a 7-6 or a 7-9, or even like a 6-4 suited perhaps. So we have to try and bet a size which he's able to call with worse, and we don't fold out a lot of the hands that we want to get value from. And so I don't like shoving, I don't like betting really small, so I think here I decided to bet 120, which looking back I'm pretty happy with the sizing because yeah, I think it's a good size. I think 5s are never really going to fold for that amount. 3s might come along for the ride. Also, it gives the illusion of fold equity. Oops. So he could always like spaz shove a hand that he really shouldn't be involved with. And yeah, and then all 7s are going to go over. So it just seems like a good sizing to me. Once he shoves, it's 130 in a pot of 6-10. We're obviously always calling. We need to be good a tiny amount of time here. And he shoves 9-10. His call on the flop, I think, is kind of marginal. I can understand why he made it. He has 2 overcards, backdoor straight draw. But the thing is, if he hits a draw like a 7 or a jack or something or a queen, there's only a pot size bet left. I don't really think he has that much. There's a good chance that I'll shove the turn, and if I do that, then he might have to fold a hand that, you know, doesn't have that much equity, or then he's just calling it off with like 10 high. On a board like this as well, I don't know if he can. I don't think he can expect me to fold, just like to give up on many turns. So that being said, I'm not really a fan of his call here. Once I bet half pot, I don't know, then he's just found himself in a really kind of horrible situation, and he's getting a good price on the bluff, and he has a lot of outs, and he doesn't really know what to do. I think he could maybe call the turn though. And the reason is because once he calls, there's like 130, 140 left. And I don't think he should expect me to bluff on almost any turn. And so if I check the river and it comes a blank, I think he can fire out 140 and just try to fold out my king queen highs and things that beat him, jack highs. Maybe fold like a 5x if I had like a, I don't know, maybe like a 5-4 or a 9-5 suited, which I played this way, and then the turn comes really bad for me, like a jack, and I just decide to fold. I mean, I don't know. I think just calling gives him better options, and the adjustments I'll make from this tells me quite a lot about how he sees my donking range. I think that he he obviously doesn't give it too much credence, so I'm gonna sort of bear that in mind and maybe look to mix in some leading top pairs in the future. His C bet's only 55%, so if I haven't been already, then I should start like leading some strong hands against him, just because it plays well. And he's getting to the turn with 55 divided by 50 times by 71. It's not all that many hands. To like the percentage hand he gets to the turn with when he's barreling, so we can take control back of him and win some money. So yeah. Anyway, we get our money in good here and manage to hold, which is nice. It's nice to win a pot off a reg. I know the right is this second time he 3-bet me. I mentioned this hand earlier. And yeah, what I didn't realise is that his non-all-in 3-bet was 27%. And that's really high. Like, if I normally 120 is a stronger 3-bet size. So my kind of auto default here is ace-8 is the top of my folding range. I'd maybe call ace-9. Definitely ace-9 suited. Unless they really had tight stats. I know what I was thinking. I was thinking that it looks really strong. People like to do this with ace-king, ace-queen. And I didn't want to look bad on video. Thing is, though, when he's 3-betting that much, 27% to this size, I think he's doing this with a lot of hands I beat. I think he could be doing it with like king 9, king 10s, king 8s, some suited connectors even possibly. And if he's doing a hand with like ace 4, he's doing that and calling it off, or even folding. Like, either way, it's just a really terrific spot to get your money in. Ace 8 does pretty good against 34% of hands, which is what he's 3-betting, and even more now. So yeah, I go ahead and fold here, which is it's definitely a mistake, and just something to watch out for when don't just see like have set ranges in your head. Always look at their stats and try and make an informed decision.